B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here in our Tuesday night shiur of EPIDEMIC, the era of Mashiach. Where tonight, B'ezrat Hashem, going to continue the series based on the Kuntres by Rav Elchanan Wasserman, Alav Shalom. Tonight's shiur was for Ilui Nishmat Olivia Bat Almas, and Lehavdil, also for a Refuah Shlema for Chana Rivka Bat Vivian Fortune, Abigail Bat Surya, Levin Ben David HaKohen, Rabbanit Levana Bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, David Ben Esriya, Doris Bat Jora, Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Orit Bat Ilana, Michal Bat Yael, Talia Bat Sarah, Yitro Ben Avraham, Stefan Ben Katarina, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for Shaul Ben Farzane, Oshri Ben Doris, Gabi Ben Doris, Elad Ben Doris, David Ben Esriya, Yitro Ben Avraham, Marsha Bat Julie, and her dear daughter Ayla Bat Marsha, and also her sons Samuel Ben Marsha and Alexander Ben Marsha, and all of her dear sons. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam bekol mikol kol, chaim arukim shlemim meleim Torah mitzvot, gmilut chasadim, nachat, bracha v'atzlacha, and all of the wonderful people that are helping us in our old campaigns, new campaigns. Just last night and again this morning, we publicized the campaign to raise some money in order to publicize the new movie, B'ezrat Hashem. We're very, very close to completing it. You know, people are asking, when is it coming out? Is it something next year? Is it something this? No, this is ototo. This is any minute. You know, I would estimate a month, 2 months, B'ezrat Hashem, the movie is already out and the marketing plan is in play. Now, of course, we could always, people would ask, okay, well, what do you need the money for? If the movie was already made, what do you need the money for? Well, of course, we don't necessarily need the money to produce the movie. The movie, we've already invested a ton of money to produce the movie. The money is being used to market it. Now, you could also market it for free, put it on YouTube and hope for the best. But if you love Am Yisrael, if you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're going to do whatever and make every sacrifice you possibly can to use all the tools that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you in order to reach Am Yisrael, in order to reach those people that love Hashem, among the NOAHIDES, among the Jews, and so on. So being that I spent almost 20 years in marketing, you know, being on Wall Street, having a hedge fund, having a brokerage firm, different businesses, and so on and so forth, I have a little bit of an experience, I would say, a little bit of experience in what you can utilize money for. And although generally speaking, you know, everything that we do, we put everything out there and hope that Hashem has mercy on us to make it succeed, there comes a time that you want to exert a little bit more effort in order to, in essence, entice Hashem to help your success. It's not that the marketing plan, even if we have $1 billion budget, is going to work because we spent the money. It's always going to be Hashem. But in essence, what we're trying to do is to exert even more effort than what we already have, make even more sacrifices than what we already have, in order to be pleasing to Hashem, to show Him that we really want this to work. We really want this to work. We really want the Mashiach to come to a generation that is holy, to a generation that has already corrected the yesod, the foundation.
You know when you have a dream and you see a pretty woman? You've had that? Now you never actually see an ugly woman in dreams. It's always a pretty woman. And by the way, it's always the same woman for all of us. All of us have a dream of the same exact woman. And she's more dangerous than the Satan himself. Who is she? You're not even allowed to say her name. Why are you going to call for her?
People are addicted to it.
I live a normal life.
Repent and you will find salvation.
Because as we know from the Zohar Kadosh, that the Ben David doesn't come, the Mashiach Ben David is not going to come because just because we feel like it, or if we scream Mashiach now. Mashiach Ben David is going to come either to a generation where are fully righteous or a generation that are fully wicked. And the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin elaborates over there and says, what do you mean? It can never be a generation where everyone's wicked, even though sometimes it looks like it. And it's never going to be a generation of fully righteous, even though within your own little cocoon of a neighborhood, it may look like it sometimes. Of course, there's always going to be some and some. So we do know from here that, and many other places, that Mashiach ben David is going to come when there are certain conditions that are being met. Certain conditions are being met in the world. And as far as the generation fully righteous or generation fully wicked, it's not to be read literally, but rather that Hashem is going to test the world before Mashiach comes, i.e. coronavirus, its mutating brother or sister, one from England, one from Africa, and whoever else follows, different type of financial scenarios, presidential and government collapses, things like that. I don't know if you guys, in case you guys heard of something like that somewhere. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to test the world, put the world under the fire, if you will, before Mashiach comes, to see who is going to commit to Hashem and who is going to go to Baal, to the idol worship, to Christianity, to idolatry, to arrogance, to ego, to money, to everything else other than Hashem. Who thinks that money is going to save them? Who thinks that a vaccine is going to save them? Who thinks that a government is going to save them, or a new elected officer is going to save them, or a new job, or a new this, or a new that? Who thinks that anything but Hashem is going to save them? Anything but Hashem. And the reality, Rabotai, is that, we see from the Torah many times that the Prophet Jeremiah promises us in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that whatever happened in Mitzrayim is going to happen again, meaning the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought on Mitzrayim are going to happen again, which means that if the miracles are going to be such as the 10 plagues that we're seeing in this week's parasha, we're also going to see some of the things that preceded it, and perhaps we're actually seeing that in the world today. You may not be paying attention, but the idolatry that we fell for in previous generations is, we think, oh no, average Jew is not praying to some statue. The problem is, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that Avraham Avinu had 400 sections to his, and some say 600 sections to his tractate Avodah Zarah. So what, is there that much Avodah Zarah? No, it's a different types of Avodah Zarah. Is not just statues, but also weak character traits or bad character traits, and also different types of idols. So your average idol is not just Christianity or a Buddha statue or some motorcycle or a cow that the people in India are praying to. No, there are different types of idols, such as the god of money, the god of government, the god of coronavirus, the god of promiscuity, immorality, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately today there are many forms of idolatry in the world. And just today I actually learned a chidush from one of my students, Baruch Hashem, is a Baalat Tshuva that really overcoming extraordinary obstacles. Growing up in a household of reform mentality, reform Judaism, never really understanding what the truth is, and little do you know, she grew up to without understanding what God really is, Bichlal, and was going and learning feminism. Now, I had other students that were infected by this disease of feminism in the past, but only today did I learn that feminism is indeed another form of idol worship. another form of idol worship, for different reasons. But the one that I found out today was that it seems like the people at the upper echelon, if you will, upper echelon of feminism are actually idol worshipping 100%, none other than the Satan's wife. That's who their role model is. That's who their idol is. That's who they write books about and give lectures and write essays about. Hashem Yishmol. They even call her by her name, which it's not recommended to what we do. So the point being is that there's all types of idol worship in the world today, and really all of these different types of false beliefs stem from a need to believe in something. Even the atheists are actually religious. In fact, some atheists are more religious than your average religious Jew at times, because your average atheist feels the need to rebuke his fellow, to rebuke his colleague, to rebuke anyone that he crosses in one way or another, to let him know that their beliefs are false and his beliefs are right. They're very, very much fulfilling the so-called mitzvah of rebuking only to the wrong God, only to the wrong belief. But nonetheless, aside from being punished for it, it's admirable that they actually have such zealousness to their false beliefs. And this actually is very common among false gods and their followers, that they're actually very adamant about their beliefs. And as you can see, in order to be a religious Christian, even their own Bible and in Matthew and other places in the New Testament, or what we would like to call the False Testament, there is several different places of how their commandment to missionize, specifically Jews, is an obligation among the Christians. It's in fact something that is going to distinguish you among non-religious Christians. If you don't missionize as a Christian, you're in essence considered like as if you're secular. You're not so religious. Well, why don't you preach? Why don't you preach the false god of Yoshke? That's what they want you to do. Same concept goes with Islam. Their system of bringing people closer to their heresy is called dawah. And your average guy that sells hot dogs or other types of shawarma meat and different types of Middle Eastern dishes and so on in trucks all over the United States and all over the world, has stickers and has all the types of material that he gives his customers for free in order for them to get closer to Allah. Now, although Allah is the same God as the God of Israel, unfortunately, the way they reach him and the way they serve him is heretical and is against the Torah, which we'll discuss later on today. But you see that in order for someone to be considered a religious Muslim, they have to actually preach. They have to preach their beliefs to the average person. And in fact, it's unfortunate, but nonetheless, it's a reality that the fastest growing religion in America, in the United States, is Islam. Many Christians are leaving Christianity as part of their realization that it's 100% idolatry, dividing God into three, saying that some woman got pregnant from God, all types of stupid things that they say in their new false testament. So many of them are leaving because of their lack of awareness of the Torah being holy and the only divine book that ever existed and ever will exist. They go to Islam, and many places are popping up, huge monumental places, in Texas and in other places in Middle America are opening up and actually growing quite rapidly in the United States, just like it did in France and other places in Europe, which didn't end up so good for the Europeans, but nonetheless, it is happening in America as well. And the point being is that your average Muslim, your average Christian, your average atheist is very, very adamant about their beliefs. In fact, they're proud fanatics. They're proud fanatics. They don't like to be called fanatics, but nonetheless, they have to be fanatic in order to continue growing as rapidly as they do. On the other hand, you have the NOAHIDES. NOAHIDES many times where they leave Christianity, they leave Islam, they leave all types of other idol worship or heresy in the world. They discover the Torah and they want to join Judaism. Sometimes they join it by going full force and successfully convert to Judaism. Other times they realize that they cannot convert from different issues that they have, whether it's not available in their country, they can't afford it, marriage, children, all types of different reasons of why certain people cannot convert, or at least for the time being. But nonetheless, many Noahides are very, very adamant about their new beliefs in the Torah, new beliefs in God, new beliefs in the only truth that ever existed and ever will exist, which is the Holy Torah. And they're very adamant about publicizing their beliefs against Christianity or anything else. They're very, very public about their beliefs many times, and they love to help others get closer. They already got, if you will, the training from their past lives and to realize how important it is, but now they realize it's even more important than they thought before, because when they were preaching the falsehood of Christianity and otherwise, they thought they were preaching the truth, and then only to find out that Judaism and the Torah is the only truth. So now they realize that preaching the real truth of the Torah is even more important than ever before, because not only do they have to make up for lost time, not only do they have to make up for lost souls that perhaps they were a part of in the past, but even more so, they realize how few is the number of people that actually know the truth. So many Noahides become literally fanatic, and many of them are actually proud fanatics. Maybe they don't like necessarily be called fanatics, maybe they do. Perhaps a little bit more than some of the others that I mentioned. Obviously the Noahides are in the right path, whereas the others are not. But nonetheless, there are sometimes a type of fanaticism of the truth that is wrong, a fanaticism of the truth that is terrible, a fanaticism of the truth that will steer you in the wrong way, which is one of the things we'll discuss tonight. Not last but not least, it's also Jews, Orthodox Jews that love the Torah, love the mitzvot, and they're fanatic about it. I always like to call myself a proud fanatic, because if I'm going to be fanatic about anything, let it be about God and His people. But the point being is it fanaticism that's out of control or within control? We'll decide that, B'ezrat Hashem, in accordance to the Torah. If your fanaticism is in accordance to the Torah, then it's healthy fanaticism. If it's not, then obviously it's unhealthy, regardless of what it is. But the point being is that there are some people that are very, very proud of their Judaism. They're very proud of the Torah itself, and even more importantly, they're very, very conscious of the fact that there are very few people out there in the world that realize, including Am Yisrael, that realize how important it is to follow the words of God. Because God did not suggest the 10 commandments. God did not suggest the 613 commandments. God did not suggest the Torah and mitzvot. God did not suggest these things. God commanded them, and there's a very, very big difference. And unfortunately, in the Anglo-Saxon Jewry today, the English-speaking Jews in the world today, for whatever reason or another, they skipped a few shurim in the past several generations, where many, including the religious among us, for whatever reason or another, believe that being religious is something that's a good thing to do, suggested, but not necessarily an obligation. As you will see from different statistics that the PEW research came up with several years ago, how 94% of Jews in the Western society, in the United States and Canada, are dealing with money on Shabbat. Many of them, believe that you don't actually necessarily have to believe in God. That doesn't necessarily make you Jewish or not. And so on and so forth. As this young man that I've been going back and forth with here and there over the last couple of months, he tells me a lot of his beliefs, and I really feel bad because unfortunately he believes he's right, but that's only because he learned this from false teachers that Rav Wasserman Alav Shalom has been telling us about and warning us about for the last several months. Many different rabbis, false rabbis, have told him that no matter what you do, you're a Jew. Everyone is Jew. If you're born a Jew, you'll die a Jew, and everything is good. And in essence, although there is a certain element of truth to it, there's also a lot more falsehood to it and a lot more misleadings in it. And that's some of the things we'll discuss today. So again, there are many Jews that are religious Jews that are fanatic about the Torah, that want to publicize the Torah, and many of them are individuals, and they do it directly or indirectly. Directly by giving people CDs, inviting them to lectures, arranging lectures, donating money is indirectly, sharing lectures behind the scenes indirectly. But nonetheless, there are many ways to show your love for Hashem by being fanatic about Him and His Torah. But the point being is that when does fanaticism cross the line? What is really the difference between you and some Christian or preacher that's walking around the middle of Broadway in New York screaming, praise the Lord of his falsehood? What's the difference between that crazy person screaming and yelling in the middle of New York or other places, or one of these Israelites, they call themselves, these giant human beings that decide that anyone that disagrees with them they could get physical with, and at the very least intimidate them to death with their costumes from their crazy beliefs that they have. They have all these different weird costumes, and they yell and they scream and they insult, especially Jews, because they believe the Jews are fake and they believe that they're the real Hebrews, and so on and so forth. All types of false beliefs. The point is, how do you get to that? How do you get to that? And what's the difference between that and the right type of fanaticism? So, with that being said, we have a new section that we're starting in this kuntres called Ikveta Mashiach, or the era of Mashiach. And after we've completed the very long and invigorating section about the bad shepherds being the bad leaders of the last generation, such as the ones that are leading the world today, regardless of which country you live in. I don't believe there's any country in the world that's proud of the leaders they have, or the government that they have, or in many cases even the religious representation that they have. Unfortunately, today we have a prophecy that's mentioned in the Gemara, Masechet Sotah, page 49b, which says that that we'll have nothing to rely on other than our Father in heaven in the time before Mashiach, and we're seeing more and more of that on a daily basis. Just 3 minutes of looking into the news will increase your blood pressure by 50%, with all of the different things that are being said. Some are false, some are true, some are right, some are wrong, some are fake news, some are real news. You really can't tell the difference. You have people, simply losing their mind over the last couple of days, or perhaps maybe a little longer, the last week or so, on social media, whether it's because of what happened to Donald Trump, where Facebook, Twitter, I think Google and whatever, and everyone else pretty much shut him down and is not allowing him to express his opinion, his rules, his whatever, his speeches, which of course is very bad for society, even though I don't necessarily agree with everything he says or disagree with everything that he says. Nonetheless, the freedom of speech was violated, and in fact, it was taken over by the technology companies. This is something that can be very, very damaging to society, for the simple fact that instead of having a government body that you would at least hope for has some type of an electoral process, some type of a method to the madness, that's comprised of a body, a Congress, and so on and so forth, that are making up the rules. Now, instead of a bunch of 50, 100, 200, 500, crazy people deciding, now you pretty much have like 3 people deciding. So your odds are against you, because it's more likely that the 3 crazies are crazy about the same thing, and they could all just simply decide to shut down or turn on whatever they want. So unfortunately, this is happening right now in the media world, where you literally have shut down one of the most outspoken people in this generation, And whether you like him or dislike him, everyone has to agree that his marketing ability is second to none. Simply put, he made him, he put himself in a situation, in a position to not only make a lot of money, but also become president as a result of not only obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nonetheless in the physical world as a result of his efforts and his expressing his arrogant opinion. The point being is, once he was shut down, if they would have actually done this during the first election, he would have never become president. If they would have done it during during the term, they probably would have gotten him impeached. So the point is, this was just a matter of time before these people took charge. But apparently, it seems like they got the permission from somebody. But on the other hand, this type of fanaticism can create a lot of havoc in society. On the other end, you have also the people that are fighting it. Not only Donald Trump, but all of his followers. He has millions of followers and supporters and so on are fighting it. And many of them are also spreading the same type of fake news where they're saying, every time somebody sees a helicopter in the sky, oh, look, I think we're going to war because I see that the helicopter is low. Or look, there's a huge airplane just landed in the airport and it has a government sign on it. I think we're going to war. Every 3 seconds, somebody comes up with one of these stupid comments or videos and says, oh yeah, we're going into martial law and this and that. To be honest with you, I don't know, nor do I care, nor should you care. A lot of people wasting a lot of time, a lot of effort, and definitely increasing their blood pressure, definitely decreasing their faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, their emunah in Hashem, because you're seeing a lot of things that are happening. You have no control over whatsoever. They're very nerve-wracking, and it's making people, make silly decisions. One of them I can tell you, and again, with all due respect to everybody that thinks the decision to do what they're doing, I think it's stupid. It's my opinion. It's not Torah, it's just my opinion. So this is one of those things you don't have to necessarily agree with. Everybody simply leaving WhatsApp and going to the other Telegram or Parler or, I don't know, Single, Springle, whatever, all these other things, because you think that now you're going to be able to protect your data, because Facebook made a new policy and they said they're going to use your data because they own WhatsApp and you're going to go to Teletub and Telebub and all these different things and you're safe. You're safe. There's nothing more naive than that. There's literally nothing more naive than that. First and foremost, you should know. Okay, you should know a few things. I was in the business world. I know a little bit about this, how big tech and big companies and corporate America works, maybe a little bit more than the average person. Okay, let me tell you a few things. First and foremost, rule number 1, if you don't want anyone to know about it, don't write it. Simple. That was a rule in my firm. My firm, when I was on Wall Street, 16, 17 years, for many years I refused to give my employees email. Why? Because I know that that's a big responsibility. How do I know what this guy's going to write to his clients? He's going to promise him something that he can't deliver on. He's going to say something stupid. He's representing my company. Eventually, I started giving some of the people emails and so on, more freedom. We were able to supervise it to a certain extent, but nonetheless, we always had a very, very strict policy. When it came to messages, everything had to be reviewed before it left, and so on and so forth. Why? Because, again, I know that if they say something stupid, it's my tuchis on the line. I'm the one that's going to get in trouble, not them. Why? Because they're just some low-level employee. When the regular wants to have somebody, they're going straight to the top. That's just the way the world works. So, our policy was simple. If you don't want it public, don't ever write it. It's like, yeah, but I'm only writing it to Mr. Smith. I'm only writing it to my mother. I'm only writing it to my friend. I'm only writing it to my son. Yes, but you don't understand. The way technology works, once you take your thoughts and make a digital imprint into the world of those thoughts, and it goes into the internet, that's it. It's public information. Doesn't matter what policy WhatsApp has, or Teletubby, or Telegram, or Parler, or whoever you have. It doesn't make a difference. Once that information, that thought that you have, goes and becomes a digital image somewhere, it's public information. Not necessarily just because the companies, but because the person that received it can easily press share. the person that received it can easily share it in 1.5 million different ways. And the point is, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Niggas say, no, but I can get an app that has special technology that as soon as I say something, then I can be erased as soon as I said it. Yes, what do you think? The criminals didn't think that too? The people that are evil didn't think of that too? If they got you something, they got you. Trust me. If they have pictures of Biden's son with pedophilia, his own private pictures of him being a pedophile, a disaster of a human being, a person that should literally get the death penalty. You know, if the Torah ran the world, if the Torah was the one, what was actually the rule of the world, he would literally get death penalty for the things that he's done. And many other wicked politicians. Wicked. I mean, some people even saying that they have pictures of some of these politicians performing pedophilia and then murdering their subjects. Again, the point being is true, not true, is not really the business here. The point is that if somebody made a digital image of it, whether it be picture or text message, it's only a matter of time before that becomes public knowledge. It's already public knowledge, but only to a small public. Same thing with your text message, your email, your video, your picture, your whatever. So, rule number 1, if you don't want it out there in the entire world, if you don't want some balloon flying across the field with your email on it, do not write it. I don't know, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. You don't want anyone to know it? Don't write it. You don't want anyone to see it? Don't take a picture of it. The second you do, all bets are off. Stop thinking that you have some false sense of security because you have a secure firewall on your phone and you only sent to it's all hogwash. Once it becomes a digital image, it's only a matter of time before it becomes public property. Just the way it is. Either on purpose, accidentally, corporate policies, human policies, wicked people, naive people. It just is. Once you make a digital image of it, it's public information. Just know that. So stop giving yourself the thought that you're going to be more protected and your privacy will be more protected if you go on the internet with some alias, or if you are going to surf the web with a different name and different emails, or the best yet is the people that have screen names that are not their names. Perhaps one of the most annoying things in the world, simply because if you want to talk to somebody, what are you going to call them? You're going to call them, hey, Mr. Katz? What are you going to call this person? Have your real name on there. Why? Because in reality, if I really want to know your name, I'll find it. I'll find your social too. I'll find anything that I want. Money can buy anything. And guess what? It doesn't even require money in many cases. The point is that if somebody is evil, smart, and motivated enough to get your information, they can get it. Stop making yourself think that you have any form of privacy whatsoever. The only thing that's private is the thoughts that stay in your head. That's it. Everything else is not private. Transferring from WhatsApp to Telegram or to Signal or to all these other things is not going to protect your privacy. It's just going to give you a bunch of new ways to waste your time. That's all it's going to do. Now, does that mean you shouldn't do it? It's your time, it's your life. We have a channel on Telegram. You want to go over there. We have a channel on YouTube. We have a channel on Facebook. We have a channel on on WhatsApp. We have channels in every different places for all types of people that have different channels. But stop wasting your time thinking that this is going to help you. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. It's not going to hurt anyone else. These companies may be here tomorrow, gone. May be here today, gone tomorrow, or vice versa. So don't put so much effort into this stuff. It's really a big waste of time. Again, rule number 1: if once it becomes public, outside of your mind, that's it. It's public information. You don't want it out there. Don't let it out of your head. Simple. Second thing, Rabotai Karim, is to understand that in the business world, things change just like this. Why? Money. The motivation for power of money, which really the reason why people want money is because they want power. So with that being an incentive for people that thrive to have more and more power, they're fanatic about power, they'll do anything for it, which means that any of these companies that you're going to, Signal, Telegram, or anybody else, they have their policies right now that perhaps you agree with or you even know about, but that can change. When? Tomorrow. Why? Just imagine a very simple thing. I was on Wall Street. We saw a few big companies get bought, a few big companies get sold, and so on and so forth. We saw 10, 20, 50, $100 billion transactions in our lifetime. We've seen it. So Facebook decides, you know what? We want more power. And since we have a few friends in government that like us now because we did what they wanted, so we're going to go, hi, Mr. Telegram. Hi, Mr. E-Signal. Hi, Mr. Baba Rabba, whoever you are. Mr. You want to become the next social media? Listen, how about this? We're going to give you a check and you write the number on it. How about that? How about them apples? Huh? What do you have a nice villa? You have a nice apartment in New York City for $2 million? How about this? I'll give you a check and you write the number. You could just buy the whole building. How about that? No, but I believe in social privacy. Privacy, go buy yourself an island. Whoever runs those operations, you give them enough money, they'll sell whatever they sell. And guess what? With selling that technology, all your private information is sold along with it. Why? That's just the way the world works. Or better yet, this is just an easy way to understand, right? Better yet, they don't even have to tell you. They don't have to tell you. They could just sell your material like they have for decades without even telling you. And you say, yeah, but that's illegal. So what? Go sue them. So what? How? You're going to know. You're going to find out. How are you going to find out? You're going to find out when it's too late, when it was already sold to 50 different parties. Your information, once it becomes digital, that's it. It's finished. Forget about this idea of privacy. The only privacy is privacy from a predator to get it easily from you. That's it. That's the only form of privacy. Everything else, if somebody's clever enough, somebody's smart enough, and somebody's motivated enough, they'll get your information. Stop making yourself believe that you have more protection being in the conservative outlet. It's the most ridiculous, naive thing in today's society. People actually think they have privacy. There is no privacy. You're a digital, that's it. If somebody really has the ability, the know-how, and again, like I said, the desire to do it, they could literally get a digital image of your face whenever they feel like it. Of your face, via your computer, via different satellites, and so on and so forth. The point I'm trying to tell you is this. En od milvado. There's nothing else but God. What does it have to do with God? Everything. It has everything to do with God. Instead of being scared of the big brother, Facebook, Twitter, or everybody else, instead of being scared of your camera being hacked into and your phone being hacked into and perhaps even your bank account. I had a guy tell me, listen, I wanted to make a donation, but the website's not working. Maybe you want to accept Bitcoin? I'm sorry, I don't have the patience nor the time to go look into how to accept Bitcoin as an organization, and then I have to track it. Leave me alone. You want to donate money like a regular person. If you want, I can have somebody call you and take your credit card. Oh, no, I don't like to discuss those things on the phone. Like, again, I didn't respond. I said, okay, no problem. Figure it out. Good luck. Thank you very much for the support anyway. I'm not going to waste my time debating this. Why? Because you have to re-educate someone to explain to them what? You think that if you discuss your credit card information on the phone, or you don't discuss it on the phone, that means that your credit card information is not public to some evil person that wants to get it? No. If they want to get it, and they have the know-how, and they have the motivation, they'll get it. Simple. Simple. Stop believing otherwise. But more importantly, rather than being scared of the phone being hacked, rather than being scared of the currency of the world, rather investing everything into digital currency, rather than being scared of social media or big pharma or the vaccines or the government, how come very few understand when I tell them that the number one thing that you need to do in your life is to be scared of God? Why is it so much easier for us to be scared of everything else but God? Why? Because, Rabotai Yekarim, the only fear you're allowed to have As it says in Or Israel by Rabbi Salant, the only fear you're allowed to have is the fear of God. Every other fear is not only a mistake, it's forbidden and can even be actual idolatry. At the very least, it's dust of idolatry when you're scared of other things. Why? Why are you scared of digital media? Why are you scared of Pfizer? Why are you scared of Netanyahu? Why are you scared of the Biden? Why are you scared of all these things? Why aren't you scared of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why? So the point being is, when a person realizes that there's nothing else but God, then obviously they're going to act differently. I'm not saying to just go post all of your information for everybody to get, and here you go, here's my money, take it if you want, or I believe in God, he's going to protect me. No one says to be stupid, but don't be so naive to put all of your trust into any type of organization. The only one that deserves your trust is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's it. Believe in him, trust in him, nothing else. That's it. Simple. Now, when a person understands that there's nothing else but God, and at the same token can even rationalize it to a certain extent by realizing that, again, I don't really have any freedom from anything, and I don't have any freedom even from the things that I thought I have, then it becomes a little bit easier to get on the right path and invest your time, money, efforts, and everything else on the right things. The problem is, Rabotai, is that what happens is that the Satan has fooled an entire generation into believing that he doesn't exist. Because very few people are worried about the Satan. Very few people, and I'm talking about the religious among us, very few people are worried about the Satan. Very few people are worried about his wife. So much so, in fact, some people even worship him and his wife, as we learned today. But also, very few people have the right tools to defend themselves against the Satan. So what ends up happening is Satan infiltrates your system as the ultimate virus that doesn't enter your computer. He enters your mind. He enters your heart. And he taking over control, pressing buttons and letting you know where to go. Oh, you know what? Instead of going to the Shiur Torah, why don't you go spend some more time watching the news and wasting your life? Oh, you know what? Instead of reading your Daf Yomi, why don't you go press on that video just to see what it says? The video, it has Trump's picture on it. Why don't you press play on that one? Oh, you know what? Instead of praying on time, why don't you go play with your text messages? Maybe the new system on Telegram and e-Signal, maybe there's something new and clever there that's going to tell you that the Trump is not leaving and Biden's going to jail. Maybe there's going to be something new. Maybe this, maybe that. The Satan enters your system and you don't even know it. And unfortunately, Rabotai Karim, this has been happening since the beginning of time, and in many cases, the Satan gets to such a point where he literally takes charge, so much so the person becomes so accustomed to the ways of the Satan become his or her nature. And they declare war against the Torah, because that's in essence what the Satan's role is in the world, to declare war against the Torah. Not that the Satan hates the Torah, but rather he's the resistance. He's the one that's going to tell you the other side. You say go to Shiur Torah, he says why. You say eat kosher, he says why. You say let's get married to this woman, he says nah, come on, go somewhere else. He says stay loyal, he says he's going to be constantly the opposite of the Torah. And unfortunately, Rabotai, people have been failing this test since the beginning of time. And that's in essence what we have as a problem for Am Yisrael. In a section called HaRa'ayon HaLeumi, which is the national idea. Rav Wasserman Alav Shalom starts off with this. The father of the modern national idea, which, if you remember, we spoke about many times when he talks about the evil shepherds, the evil leaders of the generation he was living in and the generation before Mashiach. He says these evil leaders, they all have something in common. Instead of talking, publicizing, advocating the Torah itself and the ideas of the Torah, they created a new Torah called nationalism, where they want the Jew to be like what Moshe Mendelssohn, Shem Rashaim Yerkav, what he thought was a good idea, although he practiced some form of Orthodox Judaism, He believed that, Judaism is good to have, but it's better to be a German. So how do you have to hide your Judaism. So he said, be a Jew at home and a German outside. Similar to today, people that call themselves American Jews. Why? Because you live in America, therefore you call yourself an American Jew. You live in Europe, you call yourself a European Jew or Italian Jew or Spanish Jew and so on and so forth. That's a mistake. Why? Because in essence, you're identifying your Judaism as sort of a race or a certain culture, if you will, not in essence what you are. And that's a problem that we have today, this nationalistic idea. Moshe Mendelssohn thought that it was a good idea to hide the Judaism, or at the very least have the German aspect, or in today's world the American aspect of your character be the leading force to introduce you to the world. And what ends up happening is that all of his kids not only were Germans on the outside, they became Germans on the inside too. Many of them converted to Christianity. Some even, went to complete against the Torah in even worse ways, atheism and so on. Point being is that his idea not only didn't work, but it for his own kids, but it created a long list of damage that we're suffering from until this day. But his Enlightenment thought process, his movement, if you will, was the breeding ground for Reform Judaism, the breeding ground for conservative Judaism, both forms of heresy, the breeding ground for modern orthodoxy, if you will. Many people that are modern Orthodox can relate to some of the things that Moshe Mendelssohn and his followers have said. You'll actually even see some of his followers that publish books that are sold, and you wouldn't know that they're actually this author is a heretic. Why? Because he said some things that are in line with orthodoxy. I remember discovering that I myself had a book or two that were written by people that were later on, heretics, outright heretics. Why? Because some of the principles they used came from orthodoxy, but they added their little tutim on it, their little strawberry on top of it to make it theirs, and in essence their heresy at some point. But when you don't know what you don't know, you could get into a lot of trouble. The point being is that this nationalistic idea is in essence has been the poison that the Satan has been feeding Am Yisrael for the last few hundred years. But it wasn't really anything new. I mean, it existed in just a different name and a different form in previous generation, whether it was the Greeks and the Mityavnim, if you will, or the Roman Empire at that time, and you even had, the Jews in Egypt. The Jews in Egypt, although they didn't change their language, their names, or their clothes, unfortunately, they did change some of their beliefs and admired and even worshipped the idols of the Egyptians. Until this day, we have some Egyptian practices implemented into the Jewish world. One of them being the wigs. The wigs really took a huge jump as far as not just their creation. I mean, we believe they were created slightly before the Egyptian time frame, but they went from being virtually non-existent to being the product in every home of the Egyptians, because the Egyptians were very lustrous people, very immoral people, and in addition to wanting to protect themselves from the lice that, of course, you see in the plagues, but even beforehand, in addition to that, they like to wear wigs, real hair wigs, just like people wear today. And unfortunately, the Jewish people at the time, Baruch Hashem, we didn't wear their clothes or their wigs, but somehow this Egyptian idea resurfaced a few hundred years ago and has become a standard among the Jewish world, especially the religious world, and has even given names that sound kosher, like shaitel. Shaitel sounds like, this is back from Europe, our forefathers, maybe even Avraham Avinu wore it. Avraham Avinu didn't wear it, and Sarah didn't wear it, and none of our matriarchs or patriarch wore it. Unfortunately, the Satan put a kosher name on a pig. And that's in essence what happened. And of course, it's the whole exposure of it being a pig is happening in a large scale today, where we saw that not only did it come from Egypt, not only did it come from bad sources, not only is it immodest, not only are all of the Gdolim that ever permitted it not in line with it being permitted the way it is today, because it's so immodest and so realistic looking because it is real, but in more further than that, its source has been confirmed to be idolatry of the Hindu faith of India. So anyone that's wearing a real hair wig, unfortunately, has not only something that is coming from idolatry of today, but also coming from idolatry of 3,300 years ago of the Egyptians. The point being is that you have a situation where sometimes you have certain people have a certain idea, and you show them that this idea is wrong, but they're so fixed on their idea, whether it be their belief that wigs are okay, or that anything else that's against the Torah is okay. Unfortunately, it's very hard to change their mind without a lot of sacrifice. This was not different with the people that fell into the trap of the Satan called nationalism. And Rabbi Salant says here that the father of the national idea in Israel is the herald of the dawn, which in Hebrew called a shachar, who lived 60 years ago and fought all his life with great bitterness against the Torah. Apparently, he thought that the Torah had already given up the ghost and that he was to succeed it. For this reason, he created an alternative to the Torah in the shape of the national idea. In point of fact, this was not the absolute origin of the national idea. At the time of the Balkan War, all the small Balkan people thought in terms of nationalism, seeking to throw the yoke of the Turks from their necks. The opportunity presented itself for him to take the finished article and replant it on Jewish soil. So who is he talking about, and what is he talking about? Now, if we lived 80 years ago, surely we would know without skipping a beat, but since today, very few people learn the true behind the scenes of what happened at the time of World War II, at the time of the Holocaust, and beforehand, the true teachings of Zionism. You're not going to know any of these names unless, you study them extensively. And even if you don't study from the right sources, you're not going to have the right information. I could tell you myself, I went to the University of Binghamton in upstate New York. It's at the time at least, was a very good university, and I took Zionism courses. I had this, 1,000 or 1,500 page book I had to finish, and I had all types of information, and I can tell you that today, after doing real research on all this topic, everything that I read in school is completely false. The whole textbook's completely false. Why? Yes, they'll give you some real facts with the wrong conclusions and so on and so forth. So, here's some real facts. Here's some real facts that we're actually learning from the rabbis. We're learning from people that lived at the time. Rav Wasserman alav shalom. He's telling us that this enlightenment movement, this nationalistic idea, the idea that we as a Jewish people should be like everybody else, that shouldn't be a chosen people anymore, which is what the Torah calls us, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us. There's enough with this chosen people. We should just be a nationalistic. We should just be everybody's the same. If you're German, you're a German. If you're in America, you're an American, and so on and so forth. Enough of this nationalistic idea. Why? Because this is people that the Torah was heavy for them. It's too heavy for them. They didn't want anyone telling them what to do. They didn't want any restrictions. They didn't want anyone to tell them anything that's contrary to their predisposition, to their belief system, to limit their desires. And one of the people that was in essence the biggest advocate of this nationalistic idea, which in essence was the biggest enemy of the Torah, is the author of the newspaper Herald of the Dawn, or a Shachar, who is a natural-born Jew, who was a heretic by the name of Peretz ben Moshe Smolaski. This Smolaski, who published this paper in the late 1800s, he knew a little bit of Torah, but if you look at him, or some of his friends, some of his nationalistic friends, such as Yuda Leib Gordon, or Mordechai David Ben Datter, or David ben Yitzchak Kahana, or Shlomo Rubin. You see their pictures on Wikipedia, and you'll see something that rings a bell. What rings a bell? They all look like Nazis, not Jews. They all look like Nazis, one after another. Unfortunately, this is not it's not so far from Jews today that are reform and conservative and liberal, left-wing type of mentality, where many of them look like the enemy. It doesn't necessarily need to be a Nazi, but they don't look like what a Jew is supposed to look like. They don't have a kippah on. They don't have any type of connection to Judaism and its Torah. And while many may cry and waste their tears that Sheldon Adelson died today at a young age of 87, because he figured he has all this money, don't worry. Now he's going to find out from Hashem how much money he's really worth. And unfortunately, all of the damage that he caused with his money, both during his life and after he left. Now, we cannot have any remorse for people that cause damage to the Torah. There's no en shalom amar Hashem l'reshaim. There's no peace to the wicked. And people that supported all types of anti-Torah parties, anti-Torah moves, anti-Torah types of behavior, there's no mercy to such people. There's no mercy to such people. So you have this Smolansky, who in essence was not really the as Rav Wasserman says, he wasn't really the creator of this alternative to the Torah, this enlightenment movement, this nationalistic idea, but nonetheless, he took it to the next level. And he wrote the following. He said, I'm coming to enlighten you about nationalism with the nations, unifying with the nations by declaring war against the rabbis. This is in essence what Smolansky did. His whole nationalistic idea wasn't enough for him to believe that he has a new way, but he believed that the rabbis that are disagreeing with him, since they're Orthodox and they follow the Torah for 3,000 years before he was even a thought, they didn't want to follow him. So what did he do in order to give himself the stage? He decided, you know what, I'm going to replace the rabbis. The rabbis are weak, the rabbis are poor, the rabbis are, barely have any recognition in the world today. I'm going to become the new Torah. And that's what Smolansky and the rest of his followers in essence tried to do. They thought that the Torah was dead, chas v'shalom. They thought that they were going to be the inheritors of the Torah. They're going to inherit the Jewish people, the Jewish thought, the Jewish mind, the Jewish success, but without Jewishness, without Judaism in essence. So Smolansky, Shem Reshaim Yerkav, which means may the name of the wicked be blotted out. He was a enemy of the Torah, even before Rav Wasserman. And his ideas were revolutionary even to his own kind. Why? Because he was so nationalistic that he even went against Moshe Mendelssohn, the guy that started the whole thing before him, saying that Moshe Mendelssohn was not nationalistic enough. He was not nationalistic enough. Why? Because Moshe Mendelssohn said, be a Jew at home and a German outside. That's what he said. So Smolansky said, what do you mean? Why be a Jew? Why be a German? Just be a nationalist. Just be a human being. That's it. Nothing else. Why do you have all these other things? Why do you have to have this stuff? Why do you have to have connection to the rabbis? Why do you have to have connection to the Torah? Why do you have to have a connection to anything? And he had this idea, and he in essence went against even his own sage, if you will. Because he didn't think that Mendelssohn was nationalistic enough. and his followers followed suit, and this is actually was a kindness from Hashem. As the Gemara teaches us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Am Yisrael, Sichtachti b'Mitzrayim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused tension and disputes and war with Egypt among itself, meaning that at times, in order to save Am Yisrael from their enemies, he causes them to fight each other, the enemy themselves to fight each other, and to, in essence, forget about Am Yisrael. This, by the way, is also how Gog uMagog, the last war before Mashiach comes, this is how that's going to begin, where Ishmael, which is an enemy of Am Yisrael, and Esav, which is an enemy of Am Yisrael, are both going to fight each other. Now, of course, there are some among Ishmael and some among Esav that are friends of Am Yisrael. They're called the righteous Noahide, even though they're part of those nations. But nonetheless, the larger part, the majority, unfortunately, are going to be against each other. Ishmael will fight Esav before they decide to both stop fighting and then fight Am Yisrael, Hashem Yishmor. But the point is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses this tool to have the Goyim fight each other in order to forget about the Jews for a little while. In order to forget about the Jews for a little while, and this is going to be one of the tools that has been used and will be used in the future by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as he says to us. Now, this is a very important concept to know and to understand, that because this whole nationalism idea is unfortunately still alive and well, among what we call today not only the Zionists, but also some people that call themselves religious Zionists. A few of them that I've mentioned in the past, either to expose them or to simply call them out for something wrong that they've done. But the point is that religious Zionism, in essence, has a couple of different, definitions today. It's not the same thing as it was in the past. Someone asked me, what do you think about some of the rabbis, the big rabbis that were for and they were pro-Zionism at the time of the land of Israel? Was really found in 1948. There were some big rabbis that were for the Zionists, and they were big rabbis. And of course, there were many rabbis that were against it, which is, Rav Wasserman and Rav Yoel Misatmer, Alav Shalom, and so on. So there were many that were against. There were some that were for. So what do you think of those? I said, first of all, I don't really think because I'm not a gadol. But I can tell you what, in essence, Dat Torah is. Dat Torah is, you have to look at the reality. The reality is that everyone that was for Zionism, that was a real serious Jew, the Talmid Chacham and so on, was only for Zionism because they didn't know the secrets that were hidden in the closets. They didn't know that Herzl wanted to convert all the Jews to Christianity. They didn't know that the Zionists really hated Judaism and wanted to destroy it. They didn't know all those things. Had they known all of those things, they would have fought against Zionism even more than Rav Wasserman and Chafetz Chaim and many other Chachamim did at the time. But they didn't know. They didn't know that there was so much evil behind Zionism. They gave the Zionists the benefit of the doubt. You can say they were fooled in some cases, but the point being is, no one knew that these Zionists are going to kill a bunch of Jewish kids for the sake of money and medical experiments and so on and so forth. No one knew that they're going to destroy Judaism as we knew it as soon as they get a chance to. No one knew. So you can't judge anyone that was a religious, serious Talmid Chacham Jew that was pro-Zionist at the time, whether it be Rav Kook or otherwise. No one knew that the Zionists were that bad. No one. Okay, that's number one. So we're looking at everything from hindsight. So to think like that is stupid. Why? Anyone can think right in hindsight after things happened. So that's not really thinking. That's just, you saw what happened and then were you going to pick the right side? Oh wow, you're a genius. You picked the right conclusion. So there's no thinking there. It's just simply what actually ended up transpiring, what ended up happening. And then you see, oh, that was the right move, that was the wrong move, and so on and so forth. Now, the ones that were against Zionism, against those people, simply did not want to give the Zionists the benefit of the doubt. Why? Simple. We have a rule in the Torah. We have a rule in the Torah that is anytime someone does not keep Torah and mitzvot, does not keep Shabbat, does not keep kashrut, and so on and so forth, when you know it, it's obvious, they don't keep kashrut, then you could easily assume this person has no fear whatsoever of God. Why? The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says anyone that violates Shabbat, it's as if he's screaming to Hashem, I don't believe in you. So if you're screaming to Hashem every week, I don't believe in you, surely you're not afraid of God. So the point is that we learned from Avraham Avinu, with the whole experience, the event that happened with Avimelech, that he told Avimelech's people that Sarah was his sister and not really his wife. Why? He says, because I didn't want to tell you that she was my wife and you're going to end up killing me. Why did you think I was going to kill you? Why do you think my people are going to kill you, Avraham? What, we look like killers? Avraham says, I saw that there's no fear of God in this place and surely they're going to kill me. Meaning the Gemara tells us, someone is not afraid of God is always suspect that they may end up killing you. That's what it is. You don't like it? Too bad. That's one of the rules that we have. That's one of the rules that we have. Point being is, how do we apply this rule? Never be in a closed room by yourself with someone who doesn't keep Shabbat, who doesn't keep Torah, who's a heretic, who doesn't have Yirat Shamayim. Don't. In fact, you shouldn't even do business with people like that if you could avoid it. You shouldn't work for people like that if you could avoid it. You should, in essence, refrain from being in such close proximity with them. Why? They're dangerous. Why? Because when someone is not afraid of God, they're not afraid of anything. They can do anything. They can do anything they want. They can say, no, but I know somebody, he doesn't keep Shabbat, he may not even be Jewish, but he's a really nice guy. Surely there's always an exception to the rule to a certain extent. But again, even those exceptions are only exceptions under the current conditions. You change the conditions, you change the person. A person can be the nicest person in the world until you cross him. Simple. I know one guy, seriously, one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet in your life. Really, really peaches of a person. Until you step on his toe in one way that he doesn't like, he's going to make sure that you remember his name for the rest of your life. Regular conditions, nicest guy in the world, lend you money, all types of things. We'll do business with you, we'll help you, we'll do this, we'll do that. But you step on his foot in a certain way, you're finished. It's as if you never exist, as if you're not human. So the point is that when someone has Yirat Shamayim, they don't have that kind of condition. Why? Because they know that God's watching. They know that God's watching. So the point is that those Chachamim that went against Zionism from the start, they simply held stronger to the rules and did not give the wicked people any benefit of the doubt. Whereas the people that went with Zionism that were also Chachamim, they gave them more benefit of the doubt, perhaps more benefit of the doubt than they deserved. And unfortunately, what happened. We can't judge this one at all or that one. We're not them. We're not in their shoes. They obviously have their own understandings. But the point being, Rabotai, is that when you have an entire generation of people, even within the religious world, that still have common beliefs with the enemy, if you will, where they believe that Zionism is a good thing and so on, you have to investigate it further and see why. And when you do, you'll see that Zionism is not the same as it used to be. Sometimes you have certain people that are Zionists, like the bad ones of the past. They hate Judaism. Those are more like the lefty liberals. They hate Judaism, they hate the Torah, they hate the rabbis, they hate God, they hate everything except fulfilling their own desires and their ego. That still exists in the world, unfortunately. Now, there are other types of Zionists. There are some Zionists they redefine Zionism. They define Zionism by their love for the land itself, meaning they love Israel, the land. They don't necessarily care for the government, but they love living in Israel. They love doing business in Israel. They love vacationing in Israel. They love supporting Israel. They love the people in Israel, and so on and so forth. They love being there. And obviously, they love Hashem, and that love for Israel does not contradict their love of Hashem. Needless to say, a person should be very careful what he says about Israel and the Israeli people and the Jewish people. But the point being here is that there are some people like that, and that's a growing number. Many of them are actually in a modern orthodoxy. Now, unfortunately, when your primary focus shifts from the Torah to Israel, then what ends up happening is that as long as your Torah is primary and your love for Israel is secondary, you're in good hands. You're okay. But once you learn less Torah and you spend more of your time learning about Israel, its enemies, its allies, its successes, its failures, and so on, what ends up happening is that little by little you don't realize what you're actually moving into is from being a kosher religious Zionist, if you will, into a nationalist, which is the bad type of Zionist. Now, you may not realize it because you're keeping Shabbat still and you keep kosher and so on, but I promise you, this is simply the way it is. Why? Because the more your focus is on the land itself and not on the Torah, the more your focus is on the rule of the land and the government and not on the Torah, the more you are aligning your neshama with the falsehood, with the nationalistic idea, with the enemy, if you will, even if you don't mean to. It's just happening. Now, what ends up happening is you run into a problem. What's the problem? You are trying to combine good and evil and hope that both win. That cannot be. Why? Gemara, Masechet Megillah, page 6. We have, and it's also mentioned in other Gemarot as well, where you have a Rivka. Rivka has a dilemma. Rivka passes by she's pregnant. She passes by the house of Torah. The baby presses. I want to go. Ah, Baruch Hashem, I got a tzaddik in me. Ah, Baruch Hashem, he wants to go to shul already. He's not even in the world yet. Baruch Hashem, she's happy. She steps a few more steps. There's a church over there, a church of idolatry. Again, baby, whoa, I want to go out. I want to go. Idols. Whoa, hold on a second. Wait, yeshiva you wanted to go, but you also want to go to the house of idolatry? What's going on here? She goes to Shem. She goes to the Gedol Adol. She says, hey, listen, I got a problem. I go here, he wants to go to Beit Knesset. I go here, he wants to go to the church. Idolatry. What's going on? HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself tells her. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself tells her, don't worry, you have two nations. You have Esav, you have Yaakov. You have the evil, you have the righteous. That's what you have. You have two nations. One nation is more inclined to do Kedusha, that's Yaakov. One nation is inclined to do evil, that's Esav. That's just the reality of things. Good things can come from Esav, like Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, like some of the tzaddikim, but nonetheless, bad things too. Same thing with Yaakov. Some fantastic things came, and some bad things came, but nonetheless, much more good came from Yaakov than anyone else, and much more evil came from Esav than anyone else. Now, the point is that the Gemara is trying to teach us there something very critical. It says, if somebody tells you that the house of the Kesar, the house of Caesar, meaning the house of Esav, is winning, is ruling, and the house of Yaakov is also ruling, don't believe him. It's not possible. If somebody tells you that the house of Edom and also the house of Yaakov, they're both losing and somebody else is in power, don't believe them either. Not possible. Not possible. But if they tell you that Esav is ruling and Yaakov is losing, believe him. If they tell Yaakov is winning and Esav is losing, don't believe them. From there we learn the Gemara. What do we learn from the Gemara? We learn that it's not possible for both sides to be winning or both sides to be losing. The evil and the good cannot win simultaneously, and they cannot both lose either. Why? When we go by the house of Kedusha, the Kola, the Bezrat Hashem Yeshiva, you go to Bezrat Hashem Yeshiva, bhyeshiva.org. You see Kedusha, Baruch Hashem, you're winning. But you go to all the idolatry, Christianity, atheism, liberalism, feminism, all the isms in the world, losing. When Yaakov goes to the yeshiva, Yishtabach Shimo, download the Bezrat Hashem app, Baruch Hashem, download heresy, manicy, all types of C's, bad stuff. Why? Just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Both cannot win at the same time. Both cannot win. Which means, when your Torah is the ruling body in your life, then your connection to Israel is a healthy connection. You can call it Zionism, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Call it Pikachu. That'll make a difference. But if your Zionism is the ruling part of your life, you, my friend, have a problem. You have a problem. Why? You're connecting more to Esav than you are connecting to Yaakov. It's just the reality of things. Now, we see that Chacham is Tov Me'anavi. To have a Chacham, the Gemara says, is even better than to have a prophet. Everybody wants to be a prophet today. Every Tuesday there's somebody tells me they're a prophet, they heard God, he talks to them, everyone wants to think they're a prophet. But in reality, Gemara says, promises, Chacham is better than a Navi. Chacham is better than a prophet. Why? A prophet, first and foremost, you should know, he doesn't prophesize all the time. He only prophesizes when Hashem decides to talk to him. So you have periods of time, some even say as long as 40 years, where Hashem did not talk to Moshe Rabbeinu even, the prophet of all prophets. And there were many periods of time that Eliyahu Navi and all of the other prophets, Hashem didn't talk to them, they couldn't prophesize. Even though they were prophets, they weren't prophesying, they couldn't. Why? Because Hashem decides when they're going to prophesize. Which also is like a good to know information to put in the back burner. Anytime you see somebody talking like this and pretending like they're prophesying, that's fake news. Why? Prophecy does not work that way. You can't just prophesy whenever you feel like it, especially when the camera's on. It's all nonsense. But the Gemara says a Chacham could be always a Chacham. Someone who learns Torah, if he learns Torah, toils in Torah, he's a Chacham. He establishes himself as a Chacham. It's better. Why? Because he can always be a Chacham. Ask him a question to give you an answer. Ask him Allah, I'll tell you what it is. And so on and so forth. The Chacham is better than a Navi. And even more so, even if you want to know details of the future. We see, Rabotai, in the Kuntres, that our own dear Rabbi Ephraim wrote, the Kuntres HaShoah. The Kuntres HaShoah, which is a Kuntres of the Holocaust, answering the famous question of where was God during the Holocaust. This Kuntres, Baruch Hashem, was part of a distribution that we made in the past month, distributing over 30,000 copies in Eretz Yisrael. We have some copies in America also, but to a much, much larger extent in Israel, distributed for free all over Eretz Yisrael, literally in every corner. Now, this Kuntres, this short book, answers the question, not only where was God, during the Holocaust. Clearly, the answer is, what do you mean, where was he? He's the one that did it. But rather that the Chachamim, many of them knew exactly what was going to happen, that the Holocaust was coming before it came. They weren't prophets, because we don't have prophets already for 2,000 years. But they were Chachamim, and therefore they knew. What's the proof? In page 4 of the Kuntres, Rabbi Ephraim brings one of the great Chachamim, which was the Baal Or Sameach. He wrote a sefer called Or Sameach, Rabbi Meir Simcha HaKohen Midvinsk, who lived from 1843 leminyanam to 1926. Now, in his sefer called Meshech Chochmah, in Parashat Bechukotai, commentary on the verse, chapter 26, verse number 44. The verse says, after Hashem gave us all types of curses if we don't follow him, horrible, horrible curses in this parasha, this scary parasha, one of the two most horrific promises in the Torah for people that sin is in this parasha Bechukotai. In this verse, Hashem says, but despite all of this, after he tells us all the curses, all the bad things that will happen to Am Yisrael if they don't follow, the enemies will torture us, and Hashem Yishmol, and bad things, and so on and so forth. Anyone that wants to see the details should definitely read even just a literal of what it says here, and needless to say, the commentary by Rashi. So in verse 44, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, but despite all of this, meaning despite all of the bad things that are going to happen to Am Yisrael for not following the Torah, they become prisoners and full of disease, starvation, and so on. Despite all of this, while they will be in the land of their enemies, I will not have been revolted by them, nor will I have rejected them to obliterate them, to annul my covenant with them, for I am Hashem their God. So here Hashem says, makes a promise. Despite them sinning against me, despite them going to idolatry, despite them going and doing things that are against me, I'm not disgusted with them to the point where I'm going to eliminate them. It's a punishment, a severe one nonetheless, but it's a punishment, but I'm not going to destroy them because I made a promise to their forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So I'll always leave them in this world. They're my chosen people. They're my firstborn child. And I am Hashem, their God. I don't break my promises. So commentary on this verse comes Rabbi Meir Simcha Kohen Midvinsk in his Sefer Meshech Chochmah. And he says, what does it mean? This Sefer, by the way, was written over 10 years before, almost 20 years before the Holocaust. Before the beginning of even World War II. So you can't say, oh yeah, but he already saw things happen. Nothing was happening. In fact, things were okay. For the Jewish people, or at least it looked like it was. And he says the following. הישראלי בכלל ישכח מחצבתו ויחשב לאזרח רענן. I'll just translate it to English to save the time. He says the Jew will get to a point where he's going to forget where he came from, and he's going to become more of a nationalist. למודי דתו ללמד לשונות לא לא. יעזוב למודי דתו. He's going to leave his studies of his religion, meaning Torah studies, and he's going to learn things that are not for him. יחשוב כי מברלין ירושלים. He's going to think that Berlin, the capital of Germany, that's the new Jerusalem. As it says that you made, the ones that are ruined is what you made. The ones that were good, you didn't make. But don't be happy, Israel, as one of the nations. Because there's going to come a time, Rav Midvinsk says, there's going to come a time, Ruach So'ah v'Sar, a big great wind would come, and that will uproot you from the root. And a foreign nation will come from far away who did not know your language, but knows that you are foreign. Because your root is in a holy language. Your root is in the holiness. And although you have changed your language, perhaps to German, English, Spanish, otherwise, it's just a levush. It's just a clothing. But they're going to know that your root, your seed is Israel. Just like the prophets of Hashem said, of how the Am Yisrael will be uprooted in the end of days by the, after sinning. So here, in essence, what is he really predicting? What is he really saying? You read the details of the words and you see, wait a minute, this sounds like the Holocaust. And that's actually what it is. Almost 2 decades before the Holocaust, the Jews were calling Berlin the New Jerusalem. The Jews of Germany and unfortunately many other places in Europe identified themselves more as Europeans, more as nationalists than they did as Jews. Intermarriage was over 90% and 80% in many places. There were an enormous amount of reform shuls, literally well over 100 of them in Germany alone. And unfortunately, the Jews of that generation identified themselves as nationalists, identified themselves as German. And Rav Midvinsk says, don't be so happy being a German, because there's going to come a time that foreign nation is going to see you're not really one of us. You speak like us, you look like us, but you're not one of us. Why? You come from a holy seed. You come from a Jewish seed. You can never be like us. And they'll uproot the Jews. And in essence, predicting the Holocaust before it happened. It's exactly what happened with what he said. Now, the problem that we have is that there's not enough people educating the public about really what is the right way or wrong way to serve Hashem, while at the same time being pro-Israel as far as the country, the people. Not enough people educating people about the Torah. Not enough people. Again, we have rabbis, we have yeshivot, we have things like that. I don't believe there's any shortage of that. But unfortunately, the political correctness of the world that we live in has gone to the point where there is a little bit of poison in almost every speech. There's a little bit of poison in almost every class. There's a little bit of poison in every different place that you go to. So much so that sometimes you're not really sure who's really running the show here. Now, the Zionist claim was that nationalism and unification with the people, with the nations, is the reason why they should not be under any Turkish control, and in essence, that was their key to freedom. Many times you see that people talk about how Israel has the right to exist, Palestinians are could live as together or separate or whatever it is. But you see that no one really wants to go to war, which again, they're privileged to. They're able to think of their own imaginary ideas, thinking that the Muslims are ever going to have peace with them. It's fine. Everyone's allowed to have an imagination, but you see, that's not the only place that we have this type of mentality of Zionism, nationalism, and so on. It's a much, much worse and more dangerous in the so-called religious world, where we have this so-called Judeo-Christian beliefs, which we've talked about in the past, where people like Dennis Prager and the likes have preached to the Jewish people in Europe, in America, in Israel, that we should unite with the Christians, we should unite and work together in order to fight anti-Semitism, in order to make sure never again in Israel, and so on and so forth, the Holocaust. And the problem with that is that they're forgetting who's really running the show, who's really the one that decides whether there will be or will not be a Holocaust. And how do I know we're forgetting it? Because in essence, we're befriending the people that really have been our enemy for many years, much more than what we're befriending God. Now, sure, there are some decent people that are supporters, love Israel, and so on and so forth. They're not necessarily all enemies. But when you make your connection to the so-called Judeo-Christian world much deeper, much more substantial, much more fundamental to your life than your connection to God and His Torah, then we see that no different than the nationalist, the Zionist beforehand, you're veering towards the side of the Satan, the side of the Sitra Achra, the side of Esav, the side of bad. That's just the reality of things. Now, many times you're going to have people that think that they have a better idea than the Chachamim, and they could do things better. The Smolansky, as I said before, he thought that he was the inheritor of the Jewish people, and he tried to fight in the Torah. Before him, Mendelssohn did. Before him, others did. After him, others did. I mean, even Netanyahu. Netanyahu is no different than any of these people. I know that a lot of people like him for whatever reason or another, other than being a liar. I don't really think he's good at anything else, but he's a very good politician. But the point is that Netanyahu, when he took the vaccine, instead of quoting one of the Jewish sages, instead of quoting Torah, instead of showing what's really important to the Jewish people, what did he quote? He quoted Neil Armstrong. He quoted Neil Armstrong saying, like Neil Armstrong saying, one small step for man is one giant step for humanity, or something like that. Netanyahu said one small vaccine, one giant step for humanity. In essence, from there, I know that some of you are not going to think it's a big deal, but if that's what you're thinking about, that's what your head is, that's who you admire, that means that you're not the right leader for the Jewish people. You're not leading Judaism. You may have certain likings about certain Jews and certain customs and cultures and so on, but that's not exactly who the Jewish people could ever rely on. Now, when people like him and people like the ones that preceded him think that they have a better idea than the Torah, better ideas than the Torah, then we have a lot of problems. Why? Because Torah cannot be replaced. And in fact, Shlomo HaMelech says that when a person has ideas that are foreign to the Torah, sometimes he's more inclined to push those ideas, sometimes he's more passionate about those ideas than he is about pushing the truth. As it says, Mayim gnuvim imtaku, stolen water are sweeter. It's, he's much stronger as a Christian missionary than he is as a kiruv rabbi for Judaism and for Torah. He's much more inclined to push, illegal, immoral business practices or political views and so on than he is to preach the truth and so on and so forth. It's just the reality of people. So sometimes you have certain people that become fanatic about their beliefs, and Torah is here to warn us not only against them, but even against people that are trying to do the right thing. Because even if you're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to be, let's call it a righteous Jew or righteous Noahide, there is a point where you should constantly check yourself to check whether your fanaticism is too far, close, and getting closer and closer to the Satan and to Edom and to all the things that are foreign to us, and not close enough to Yaakov. How do you know where you're at? You simply look. You look at where you're at. You ask the Torah itself. You ask Talmidei Chachamim and see where you're at. What's guiding you? Is what's guiding you your emotional involvement? Is what's guiding you what your mental acumen has decided? Where your intellect has decided that this is right and this is wrong? Or do you have something to rely on? Now, Shlomo HaMelech says in the book of Ecclesiastes, in Kohelet, in chapter 7, verse 16, for anyone that's going to be a little bit fanatic, even if you're going to be fanatic about something good, you want to advocate people to make, tshuva, good. You want to advocate for people to keep Shabbat, good. You want to advocate for people to make Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, let's say. Good. You want to do all types of things that are good, right? Make sure that your fanaticism is in line with the Torah. And Shlomo HaMelech says in Kohelet chapter 7 verse 16, Al tiyeh tzadik harbeh. Don't be overly righteous. What? Did you say that helping people do tshuva is important? Yes, it's very important. But don't be too much of a fanatic. What's too much of a fanatic? What's too much of a fanatic? Why shouldn't I be too much of a fanatic? Shlomo HaMelech says, don't be overly righteous, al tiyeh tzadik harbeh, or exceedingly wise. Why be left desolate? Shlomo HaMelech says, אל תהיה צדיק הרבה, ואל תתחכם יותר למה תשומם. So, Shlomo HaMelech says, is in essence giving you a code here. How do you determine your fanaticism? Don't be overly righteous, or exceedingly wise, excessively wise. Why be desolate? Why be left desolate? So, how do we know what he means? We look at what the sages said. The Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra says, how do you know if you're a fanatic and your fanaticism is to the point of giving strength by the Satan, giving strength by the Sitra Achra, giving strength by all the things that are bad, even if it's for something good? The Ibn Ezra says, let's say on this pasuk, he comments, Let's talk about prayer. If you prayed from the morning until night, and not only you prayed from morning until night, you fasted all day. You fasted all day, you prayed all day, and it's not Yom Kippur, it's not Tisha B'Av, it's an average Tuesday. But you want to be, that's it, Chatanu, Avinu, Pashanu, but what'd you do? I thought you learned Torah all day. Yeah, but no, today is my day of Taniyot, today is my day of praying all day, I'm not leaving the Beit Knesset. Yeah, what about learning Torah? No, Torah, I need to pray. You pray from morning till night. The Ibn Ezra says, if you prayed all day, you prayed all morning and you got to the night and you fasted, you think that you're righteous. You think that you're doing good. But in reality, you're a fanatic. And you'll be alone in the end because you'll be odd. You'll be different from everybody else that's doing the right things and according to what the sages says and according to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never told you stay in the shul on an average day and just pray the whole day. He told you learn Torah, do mitzvot, if you need to make a living, get a job, and so on and so forth. Do what you got to do. You're deciding to go to a complete extreme. No, but I'm praying, I'm doing it, but I do it in the middle of the forest for 47 hours straight. Who told you to do that? Everyone says this is a bad thing. You're doing bad. You're not doing good. And eventually, since it's steering you away from the path of the Torah, even though it's prayer to Hashem, since it's different from the traditional path that we have, from the Masorah that we have, all the way from Mount Sinai, eventually, it's going to get you away from God Himself too. Why? What's moving you is not the Torah. What's moving you is your ego. What's moving you is your own thought process, independent of what our heritage is, from all the way from Mount Sinai, from our sages, from Moshe Rabbeinu. It's different. You're going to be alone, just like Shlomo HaMelech says. Why? You're trying to be more righteous than what you really are. You're trying to do more than what you're supposed to do. You're being overly wise. You're saying, no. Even though the Chachamim said pray 3 times a day, I'm going to pray more. But no one told you to pray more. No, I'm going to pray more. Even though the Chachamim told me to fast only a certain amount of times during the year. No, I'm going to fast extra. And it's not even a tikkun, a brit, it's not tikkun anything, I'm just going to fast. You're being overly wise, you're creating new things. That's not from the Torah. That's from ego. In the end, you're going to be alone. So even when it comes to prayer, Rabotai Yekarim, Chachamim say, don't be fanatic. Do what you're supposed to and do it good. Do it well. Now, even when it comes to character traits, the Ramban comes with the Igeret HaKodesh in Perek Gimel, saying, the wise men of truth taught us that a person that is too stringent it's not a good and straight path. He's too fanatic. He sees his little kid turning on a light on Shabbat, accident, on purpose, but it's a little kid. He loses his mind. You're not being righteous. It's not a good thing. You see that your daughter decided to roll her sleeve up a little bit because she just saw somebody else in the street with no sleeves, so she figures she's going to roll her sleeves, and you decide to slap your daughter, you decide to yell at her, you decide to embarrass her, and so on. You think you're fanatic in a good way? It's not a good way. Nothing good about it. It's not good about it. Why? That's not Judaism. Who told you to hit your kid because she made a mistake? Who told you? To lose your mind because your minor son made an avirah. In fact, you look at the Shulchan Aruch, sometimes it says that if one of the children makes a sin, we don't even say anything to him. Why? He's not obligated to mitzvot. He's 5 years old, he's 7 years old. What are you saying to him? Just quiet. What? Don't you say to educate them? I didn't say don't educate them. But to lose your mind on them because of certain things like this, because you're so religious, that's not being religious. That's fanatic, that's being powered by the Satan, by the Sitra Achra. In the name of the Ramban. So you want to call anybody else Erev Rav, it won't be me. It'll be the sages. You know, because sometimes people think they're so righteous. No. It's Rabbi. Yeah. He used to be strict. Now he's reformed. Okay, so You're going to call the Ramban reform. You call Ibn Ezra reform. Shlomo HaMelech reform. Where do we see this in the Ramban? Igeret HaKodesh, I said, it's commentary on Al Tiyeh Tzadik Arbeh, the same verse, Kohelet 7:16. Being overly strict is not good. Not good when it comes to character traits. Even being overly strict, overly stringent, overly humble even is not good, the Ramban says. Why? You're going to be overly humble. We already learned from the Gemara Masechet Sotah, page 5. Says even a Talmid Chacham, as much as a Talmid Chacham, has to have a little bit of ego. Don't be arrogant, but has to have a little bit of ego. Don't be so humble because you think you're going to be the next Moshe Rabbeinu. You have to have a little bit of ego. Why? Because if you're going to let the whole world step on you, you're going to disrespect the Torah in the end. Don't be overly righteous. So the Ramban finishes the point by saying, middle ground is where you need to be. Middle ground. Be in the middle. Don't go too extreme. Don't go do nothing at all. Be in the middle. 800 years ago, comes a Chacham from France. Rabbi Yaakov ben Abba Ametali. From France, in his Sefer, Melamed Talmidim, and in Parashat Kedoshim, where he says there are some people wants to be tzaddikim. So what do? I'm not going to eat anymore. No, I'm not going to enjoy the world. I'm not going to eat meat anymore. I'm not going to eat chicken anymore. I'm not going to eat fruits anymore. I'm not going to eat this anymore. I'll be like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai at the cave. He ate charuvim. I'm barely eating. I'm barely drinking. I'm barely enjoying anything of this world. I'm a tzaddik. He thinks he's going to be a tzaddik by diet. Comes a Chacham, one of the Gedolei Hador from 800 years ago. Rishonim. Says such a person is making a mistake. Why? He thinks that that's what Hashem wants. Hashem is not asking us, he says. Hashem is not asking us to leave and abandon all of our bodily pleasures and all materialism. Hashem does not hate the body, says Rabbi Yaakov, but rather he tells us to use the body the right way, control your desires, so you can serve Hashem. But you're going to an extreme. One guy's eating pig, you're thinking that to fix the pig that he's eating, I have to pretty much eat, seeds that I find in the street. Who told you that? Who told you that? No, that's going to make you righteous? It's not going to make you righteous. It's not going to make you righteous. What's going to make you righteous? Following the tradition that we have for 3,000 years. Follow ad halakha, follow the mitzvot, follow what it says. Don't be overly righteous, Rabbi Yaakov says. In the name of Shlomo HaMelech. 700 years ago, comes Rabbi Yoshua ibn Shaub from Spain. It says even when it comes to tzedakah and wisdom, Shlomo HaMelech says, don't be overly righteous. Don't be overly righteous. Don't give all your money. We see from the Gemara says, average person should not give more than 20% of their income. That's it, chomish. Don't make yourself poor. No, I want to be part of everything. Okay, Habibi, okay, Hashem knows you want to be part of everything, but don't make yourself poor. 20% of your income, you want to give maaser, chazaku baruch, that's good. You want to be tzaddik, 20%. No, what if I want to give everything? No, simple. No, don't make yourself poor. Unless you're extremely wealthy. You have $100 million. Obviously, you don't need $100 million. You don't need $10 million to live. If you could still leave yourself a decent amount of money to live normal life and not be some beggar, you can give 99% of your wealth. It depends on how much money you have. A guy like Shedel Ellison that died today, if he was smart at all, he would have literally given away 99.999% of his money for the sake of the Torah, and he would have actually had a chance of having Olam Haba. Why? Because how much Torah would have been produced from that would have been an enormous amount. But instead he bought casinos and all types of other things, and political power and so on. So the point is, Rabotai, somebody that has that kind of money should give, not only could, should give the vast majority of his wealth. But someone that's an average person, makes a decent living and so on, 20%. Why? Don't make yourself poor. Don't make yourself poor. Don't be overly righteous, Shlomo Melech says. And also when it comes to not just the tzedakah, wisdom. Wisdom. You have to make sure that you're not fanatic to the point where you say, no, I'm just going to sit in my room and I'm only going to study, I'm not going to work. Okay, so how are you going to make money? Oh, the money is just going to show up at my door. Does your wife work? No. Do you have a wife at all? No. I'm just, everything's going to show up at my door. Now, if your emunah is really at that level, I don't know why you're watching my shiur. But most reality is, you should get a job. Stop being lazy. Stop thinking that Hashem owes you something. Stop forcing Hashem to give you miracles. Go, get a job, do normal things, study. No one told you that you have to study 24 hours a day. No one told you. You have to get a regular job. Do what you got to do. You have to do what you got to do. Don't put yourself in a situation where you become the community's burden. Why? Because you want to learn Torah. That doesn't mean that everybody has to pay for it. Again, there are some avrichim that they do learn all day, but they don't become the community's burden. They find their own ways, and Hashem finds their own ways to help them in so many ways. But the point being is, you'll see that many of these avrechim also work and also do other things to make some type of effort, ishtadlut, to survive. You think that just because you started doing tshuva 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was, you're just going to sit there at home doing absolutely nothing, and Hashem's going to pay your bills, and He's going to even make a retirement plan for you. You're being overly righteous. You're being overly righteous, you're being overly wise, and you're going to end up being alone. Why alone? Because that's not the way of the Torah. It's not the way. If you're with Torah, you're always going to have all the Chachamim next to you, you're going to have Moshe Rabbeinu next to you, you're going to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu next to you, but when you're not going the derech of the Torah, you're going to be alone, Shlomo Melech says. Comes the Sefer Hasidim, 800 years ago, Siman 126. Rabbi Yehuda ben Shmuel HaChasid, saying, when it talks about Al Tiyeh Tzadik Erbeh, first and foremost, even when it comes to you protecting yourself from bad things, from sins and things of that nature, don't be overly righteous. Like what? You see, he gives, Sefer Hasidim brings this example. He brings an example. He goes, there's an immodest woman swimming, and you see her. You're learning Torah. Some immodest woman is swimming, and she starts drowning. And you say to yourself, listen, it's too bad she's drowning, but first of all, I'm in the middle of learning Torah. Second of all, if I go save her, I'm going to touch her. That's immodest. That's immoral. I may end up sinning with her. So Hashem wants me to stay over here alone. Tzaddik, kadosh. Shlomo Melech says you're being overly righteous. In fact, you're being a shoteh, a drunk. Don't think that just because you go save somebody's life, you're going to end up being a sinner. Go save her. Don't let your righteousness end up killing people. Because you think you're righteous, therefore you're going to ignore the world. Doesn't work that way. That's not the way of the Torah. Or like somebody that says, no, listen, I don't have any job right now, but you know what? I don't want to go collect tzedakah because since I learned Torah, I don't want to give the Torah a bad name. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go borrow some money. Yeah, but Habibi, you can't pay it back because you don't have a job. So how can you borrow money without knowing how to pay it back? No, but it's better, he says in his head, it's better to go borrow money than make Chilul Hashem that me being a religious person collecting tzedakah doesn't look good. So it's better that I borrow money. Wrong. Sefer Hasidim says you're shoteh, you're drunk, you're trying to be overly righteous. Go collect some tzedakah. Why? You're not allowed to borrow money if you don't know how you're going to pay it back. Not allowed. Already called a rasha the second you borrow the money. When you don't know how you're going to pay it back, that second you're called a rasha, and every day you're called a rasha in Shemaim. Why? You borrowed money without knowing how you're going to pay it back. You have no way of paying it back. You don't have a job. You don't have any income. You have no way of knowing how you're going to pay it back. Rasha. Yeah, but what about me collecting tzedakah? Isn't it Chilul Hashem? No, it's not Chilul Hashem. Why is it Chilul Hashem? Maybe embarrassing, Maybe not fun. It's definitely not Chilul Hashem. It's definitely Chilul Hashem, you borrowing the money and you being such a Talmid Chacham, you're borrowing money without having a way to pay back. That's Chilul Hashem. But you're being overly righteous. You're being overly righteous and you end up being alone. Why alone? Moshe Rabbeinu is not going to sit next to you in Gan Eden. Why? You're not in Gan Eden when you borrow money like that. You're not going to let you in Gan Eden. You see, Rabotai Yekarim, these types of situations are not new information for the Chachamim being fanatic in a good way but a bad way. Even among the Chachamim, even among the sages, the Agaot of Mordechai. Agaot Mordechai brings a story of two Baalei of a Tosfot, two of the two brothers, descendants of Rashi, that were part of the Tosfot. Some say that the Tosfot had 2,000 sages. There were two of them, the Rashbam and Rabbeinu Tam, were walking, and the Rashbam was known as a very, very, very righteous person, so much so, he would always walk like this, looking on the ground, never look up. Never look up. And he would look down, look down. He needed to go into a carriage to take him somewhere, like a taxi. And he didn't pay attention. He saw that there's a wheels, there's a tire. So he saw that this is a carriage that's could take him somewhere. So he started climbing the carriage. But his brother Rabbeinu Tam yells at him, he says, hey, what are you doing? Don't be overly righteous. Don't be overly righteous. Don't be overly righteous. We're overly righteous. Look at what you're doing, Achi. Look what you're doing, my dear brother. Look what you're doing. You are protecting your eyes because you don't want to see any immorality, any immodesty, any bad thing. But because you're doing more than what you're supposed to be doing, you're not even looking, you're not paying attention to nothing of the world around you, you didn't realize you were just about to climb a carriage that has a horse and a donkey leading it, which is a Sur Torah, not allowed to go into a carriage that has a horse and a donkey. Why? They don't have even powers. It's not fair for the donkey that he's next to a horse or a bull. Not fair. The Torah forbids it. So by trying to protect yourself from a possible sin, you are about to make an actual sin from the Torah. Why? You're doing more than what you're supposed to. Being righteous, important. Watching your eyes, important. Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah says that you must watch your eyes during the day so that evil doesn't come to you at night. Evil being wasting seed. But nonetheless, no one told you never look up, never see anything, just block your eyes and pretend like the world doesn't exist. So even Rashbam, Kodesh Kodeshim, Alvai will be a little dust, that he stepped on at some point, even during the story. Needless to say, he got rebuked. By who? By his brother, by Rabbeinu Tam. Said, no, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Now this brings me, Rabotai, to the next point. Sometimes there's people that are good people. They mean well. And they want to become Jewish. They want to become Jewish, but they can't become Jewish overnight. We're not Christianity. We can't just throw a bunch of water on you and that's it, you're Christian. We're not just Islam and just decide, listen, you want to be Islam? Okay, listen, as soon as we call you for some terrorism attack, you pick up the phone, okay, you're in. No, I'm just kidding, by the way. It's not really that. But point being is that sometimes somebody wants to join Judaism, but it's not so easy. Why? First and foremost, he has to change his lifestyle. She has to change our lifestyle. Second of all, they have to learn a bunch of stuff. Okay, good, Baruch Hashem. They're willing to learn. They're willing to change. You tell her to be modest, she throws all our clothes, like one of my students did last week. Baruch Hashem, she's a Jew. She heard about modesty in one shiur. She threw out all of our clothes and has only modest clothes now. In one day, 24 hours, Yishtabach Shemo La'ad. Alvai, Kol Am Yisrael will do the same thing. One day, she saw a shiur. She heard immodesty not allowed. She went, bought a bunch of modest clothes and threw out all of our immodest clothes. One day. Alvai, everybody will do that. But the point being is, sometimes you have people like that. So she heard about modesty, she adopted modesty. Heard about learning Torah, learns Torah. Heard about this, they do this. Everything they do, Baruch Hashem, doing it is easy. Learning is easy. But making certain changes is not just clothes, it's not just food. Sometimes you have to move to the Jewish community. And so some people, they're not able to move to the Jewish community. Why? They live in a different country, it's hard, it's expensive. Or perhaps they're married and their spouse doesn't want to convert, or is not ready to convert, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes you have people that mean well, they want to do it, and they want to be Jewish, but they just simply can't do it right now. So because of that, they don't want anyone to hold them back, and they decide, you know what? I'm going to start living as if I'm a Jew today. I'm going to start keeping Shabbat. I'm going to start keeping Kashrut. I'm going to change my clothes. I'm going to grow my peot if I'm a guy. I'm going to wear kisurosh as a woman. I'm going to do this. And they start doing things. Now, if you are in a formal, you have some rabbi that's directing you and you're in an actual conversion process, you're allowed to do most things. But again, hence the word most. Most things. There's a very big discrepancy in the world today because people think that most things means you can do everything. No, it doesn't mean everything. Most means most. Look up in the dictionary. Most doesn't mean everything. The point why there's most and there's everything. But people take it too far and they start living as a Jew so much so that they forget that they're even a goy. They start doing everything. Now, the problem is not necessarily just there. The problem is that they get to such a point that they start identifying themselves as Jews. They start acting like Jews. The world around them thinks they're Jews, and they more and more realize that there's not really that much of a difference between them and a Jew. Sometimes they even get a chip on their shoulder, and they think that they're better than most Jews. Why? Because most Jews, unfortunately, are not keeping as many mitzvot as them, and they figured, oh, see, I'm even doing better than them, so God must like me more. I'm doing better, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and then the road to hell starts getting wider and wider instead of the road to Gan Eden. They went left, they didn't go right. Even though they're doing mitzvot, they start looking at life the wrong way, they start looking at the path to Torah the wrong way. Why? It's not the path of the Torah to say things like this, not the path of the Torah to think like this. You're being overly righteous. And one of the main things, Rabotai, I tell people all the time, first and foremost, if you are in a formal conversion process, you have a rabbi that's directing you, whether that's me or countless other rabbis that help people convert, you have somebody that's directing you, that's good. You have to make certain life changes, you have to learn a certain amount of Torah, that's all good. But you have to make sure that the mitzvot that you're keeping things that the rabbi told you that you're allowed to keep, which is, even the ones that you keep them 99%. Like, for example, observing Shabbat, you observe it 99%. Observe Yom Kippur, 99%. What does that mean, 99%? You have to make an intentional violation, a small one, so you're not keeping it 100%. Why are you not keeping it 100%? Because you're not allowed. No, but I really want to. That's the point. It doesn't make a difference. You really want to. You're not allowed to keep Shabbat 100%. You're not allowed to do certain things 100%. Why? Because you have not converted yet. What? God really doesn't want me to keep 100%? Yes, God really doesn't want you. Why? Because that's the psak halacha. And what ends up happening is that sometimes people don't like to be told what to do. And they decide, you know what? This rabbi he's too slow for me. I'm going to go find me somebody else that's faster. I'm going to go do it myself faster. I'm going to do it better. I know what God wants. Not the rabbi, not the rabbis, not this, not that. And they start going on their own little path. And they start literally building a road of destruction. Instead of getting closer to Hashem, they get further from Hashem. And unfortunately, they start doing things that they're forbidden to do. One of those things, Rabotai Karim, is learning Torah that is forbidden to them. What kind of Torah is that? Let's see. Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin, page 59a, or 57a. 59a. אמר רבי יוחנן, עובד כוכבים שעוסק בתורה חייב מיתה, שנאמר תורה ציווה לנו משה מורשה, לנו מורשה ולא להם. Rabbi Yochanan said, idolater who engrosses himself in Torah study is liable to the death penalty, meaning a heavenly death penalty, not a Beddin death penalty, but a NOAHIDE, a righteous NOAHIDE even, learns Torah, Rabbi Yochanan says, is liable to death penalty. What? Don't worry, we'll explain. Why death penalty? We learn from the verse in Deuteronomy 33:4, Moshe commanded us the Torah. It's an inheritance, which implies for us it's an inheritance and not for them, meaning the Goyim. So on one hand, we have Rabbi Yochanan, giant among giants, saying a Goy that learns Torah, death penalty. All of a sudden, people are shutting off. No, it's Torah. Shut off the live. Don't shut off the live. Relax. Rabbi Meir says, same Gemara, same page. Amar Rabbi Meir, מניין שאפילו עובד כוכבים שעוסק בתורה, שהוא ככהן גדול, שנאמר שיעשה אותם האדם וחי בהם. כהנים, לוויים וישראלים, לא נאמר, אלא האדם. למדת שאפילו עובד כוכבים ועוסק בתורה, הרי הוא ככהן גדול. Here Rabbi Meir Baal HaNer says, giant among giants says, what do you say? He says, from where do we know that even an idolater who engrosses himself in the Torah study is worthy of respect like a Kohen Gadol? Psh, you just told me I'm going to get death penalty. Now I'm telling you I'm a Kohen Gadol. What's going on over here? Don't worry, it's not a machloket. It's a common opinion. They're not saying a different opinion from each other, but there's a difference. What's the difference? Rabbi Meir says that a non-Jew that learns Torah, an idolater learns Torah even, engrosses himself in Torah, is worthy to respect like a Kohen Gadol. From where do we learn this? We learn it from the laws of the Torah that a man should keep them and live by them. Live by them. This is Leviticus 18:5. Where, look, he says, it doesn't say Kohanim live by them, or Leviim live by them, or Israelim live by them, but rather a man. So from there we learn that even an idolater who engrosses himself in Torah is like a Kohen Gadol. So why did Rabbi Yochanan say that an idolater is prohibited to learn Torah? So Chachamim, the Gemara answers, very simple, very simple. That's referring to a Noahide who learns Torah that's forbidden to him. Learns Torah that's forbidden to him. That's why he deserves death penalty. Whereas the one that deserves to be honored like a Kohen Gadol, that's a person that's learning Torah that's allowed. What's the difference? If he's a Noahide, he's only allowed to learn the things that are relevant to a Noahide, which is the Tanakh and commentary about the Tanakh from the Midrashim, Rashi, things of that nature, and Musar, which is character development. Why? You need to know the Tanakh, you need to know what happened, who is God. The Meiri actually says, people think the 7 Noahide laws are very simple, just 7 things, and it's very simple to follow. No. One of those rules is to know who God is, which is to know the unification of God, which requires you to learn not only the Tanakh itself and the commentary, but also Musar, to develop your character and become a better quality human being in order to understand the unification of God, the elevation of God, and so on. It's not 1, 2, 3, you're righteous. It doesn't work that way. So when he learns such a thing as a righteous Noahide, perfect. But when he starts to learn things that are not relevant to him, such as the laws of Shabbat, the laws of Shemitah, different Gemarot, different Gemara in general, the oral Torah, the Gemara, then he deserves death penalty. Death penalty. Why? It's considered as if he's stealing. It's considered as if he's stealing. Also, there's always a fear that he's learning this Torah since he's not following what the sages said, which is to learn Torah that's allowed to him. There's always a fear that he's learning this Torah for his own sake in order to mock Jews or discourage them or dissuade them and so on and so forth. So now, what is the actual halakha? We have to go to the Rambam. The Rambam in Ilchot Melachim, in chapter 10, halakha number 9. says that a Gentile who studies the Torah is obligated to die. Just like it says in the Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin, page 59a. They should be involved only in the study of the 7 mitzvot, the 7 Noahide laws. That's what they're allowed to study. Similarly, a Gentile who rests, even on a weekday, observing that day as a Shabbat, is obligated to die. Meaning it's all death by heaven. Not Jews are not going to go kill that person. Bet Din's not going to kill that person. But the point is that when a Gentile decides to make Shabbat, he keeps Shabbat like the Jews, it's death penalty. It's not a mitzvah for him. He says, okay, you know what? I'm not going to keep Shabbat. Saturday as Shabbat. I'm going to do Wednesday. Wednesday I'm going to refrain from work, refrain from driving, refrain from writing. That's going to be my Sabbath. Death penalty, the Rambam says. Death penalty. Why? It says, needless to say, he's obligated for that punishment if he creates a festival for himself. You created a new holiday, you created a new religion. The general principle governing, the Rambam says, the general principle governing these matters is that they are not allowed to originate a new religion or create mitzvot for themselves based on their own decisions. They may either become righteous converts and accept all of the mitzvot of the Torah, or retain their status without adding or detracting from them. If a Gentile studies Torah, makes a Shabbat, or creates a religious practice, a Jewish court should beat him, punish him, and inform him that he's obligated to die. However, he's not to be executed. So here the Rambam gives us a little bit more details about the halakha, where he says exactly what it is. He says, listen, if you're planning on being a Noahide and remain a Noahide, you have to only learn things that are pertaining to you. If you learn more than what's pertaining to you, such as you learn the Gemara, you learn different halachot that are pertaining to Am Yisrael, not to you, you, my friend, are not doing a mitzvah, you're not doing a service to yourself, you're actually hurting yourself. Now, if you're in a process of converting, then you are allowed to study only the things that are pertaining to conversion. Why? Because again, so long as you have not converted for whatever reason, whether it be money, location, marriage, don't feel like it, whatever the reason is, so long as you have not converted, you are restricted with what kind of Torah that you are learning. You have more room to learn than someone that's planning on staying a righteous Noahide and not be a Jew, but it has to be strictly things that are pertaining to your conversion itself. Why? Because if you start learning other things, you're not following the sages. You're following your own mentality. You're following your own logic. You're following your own ideas. And that's going to be a mistake of a lifetime. Why? You're being overly righteous, you're being overly wise, and you're going to end up being alone. You're going to end up being alone, Rabotai Karim. And here we see, Rabotai Karim, that the Rambam has commentary here, where he says also in the Halakha number 8, chapter 8, Halakha number 10, the Jews have an obligation to instruct the Gentiles in the performance of their Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, of their 7 Noahide laws, and a Gentile who is well versed in the particular laws involved in the observance of his 7 Mitzvot is worthy of more respect than an unlearned high priest. Just the Gemara says before. Now, again, like I said, the Meiri says that the 7 Noahide laws include most of the elements of the Torah in general in them, such as the not to worship idols, and but this also again requires a person to really develop their character traits and learn Musar and so on. But that does not mean that they could just pick and choose which rules in the Torah they like, and that's it. Doesn't work that way. Furthermore, they're also not allowed to start anything new, because that's not different than Christianity. Like, for example, Christianity and Islam are forbidden according to the Rambam and most poskim. Even Islam and Christianity. Islam is, even though it's monotheistic, it's forbidden according to the Torah, and Christianity is forbidden because it's idolatry. But needless to say, they're considered new religion, so it's an additional punishment for them. And a person needs to know that when it comes to mitzvot, when it comes to following Hashem and following what He says, you have to follow Him the way He said it. You have to follow His sages the way He said it, not the way that you decide that He said it. And when a Noahide follows the Torah the way he decides or she decides, you're seeing that they're acting overly righteous. And when a person acts overly righteous, you can expect a lot of bad things. Now, Rabbi Akiva Eiger is very stringent and says again, it's very limiting in regards to learning of Torah, what they're allowed to learn, what they're not allowed to learn. The Radbaz and the Rambam write that Goyim are, even as righteous as they may be, they're not allowed to put on tefillin, not allowed to sell it to them. Same thing with tzitzit, not allowed to wear a tzitzit. A Noahide is not allowed to wear a tzitzit. If he is in the process of conversion and he wants to rely on some leniency to start wearing a tzitzit, he has to keep it inside. Why? Why does he have to keep it inside? This, in essence, speaks of the Jewish look, where a lot of people that want to convert to Judaism are very attracted to the Jewish look. You know, you see a lot of converts, they love the Hasidish look. The more Jewish, the more they like it. They like to grow the peyot before they even became Jewish. They like to grow the beard. They like the hat. They like the Jewish look. They connect to it, which is, again, not necessarily a bad thing. But when you do it prematurely, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Why? Because you're putting yourself in a scenario where now you're looking too Jewish. Number one, what if you don't end up converting? Number two, what if somebody mistakes you for being a Jew and counts you in a minyan? 3, what if somebody ends up wanting to marry you or marry your daughter and you are putting yourself in a test? You know, and the list goes on. The list goes on. Now, if somebody thinks this is just logic that I'm using, it's not logic. You go to the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh. The Al-Sheikh HaKadosh is commentary on the same verse in Kohelet. In the same exact Kohelet, same exact Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse number 16. It says, what does it mean, Al Tiyeh Tzadik Arbeh? What does it mean, Al Tiyeh Tzadik Arbeh? Al Tiyeh Tzadik Arbeh, don't be overly righteous, don't be excessively wise, you'll be left alone, you'll be left desolate. It says, don't be overly righteous, don't put yourself in a scenario where you are acting and you look and you act more than what you really are. Why? Because you have to understand what a real tzaddik is. A real tzaddik is someone that not only learns Torah, not only is glued to Hashem, but also someone that has a certain amount of suffering in his life or in her life that is above the norm in many cases. In fact, a lot above the norm. In fact, Al-Sheikh HaKadosh says, don't be overly righteous is for your own good. Why? Because you're going to act overly righteous, you're going to look overly righteous, and guess what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? That's a good look for you. Let me give you the suffering of the righteous. And what's going to happen? You're going to be left alone. What does it mean left alone? Al-Sheikh says, you're going to break. Why? Because you're really not that righteous. You're really not that tzaddik. You look like it, you act like it, you're doing things as if you are, but you can't handle. You cannot handle the suffering of the tzaddik. Why? Because you're not there yet. That's it. You're just not there. And now what's going to happen? Your overly righteousness is going to break you. And I've seen this time and time again, unfortunately. One of the most painful things to see as a person that helps people convert is people that don't listen to me. Why? They think, no, you're slowing me down, you're doing this, you're doing that. I tell them, don't learn this, don't go there, don't do this, don't do that. No, they don't want to listen sometimes. Baruch Hashem, 99% of my students listen to me, or they simply don't become my students anymore. But some people don't want to listen, and they start doing things. Otherwise, literally, in every single case, the students didn't listen to me. Eventually, they went completely off. Completely off. One went back to idol worship, even though he doesn't believe it, and so on and so forth. The list goes on. They literally ruined their life. It didn't happen overnight, though. Didn't happen overnight. They didn't listen here. They lied to me. They didn't listen here. They lied. They listened. And what ends up happening, little by little, they become their own rabbi. They become their own rabbani. They become their own god. They become their own idol. They become everything, and it all goes in the garbage. And you see some people are on the internet. You look at them. They look like Hasidim from the 1600s. They look like they were friends with the Baal Shem Tov. They're not even Jewish. You see them, they have peot, they have this, they have that, but you see their wife walks around half naked, goya. Wait a minute, hold on a second. You're a Hasid, Breslev, but your wife looks like that. She's not even Jewish. What, are you going intermarried? Oh, no, I'm in a conversion process. You shouldn't look like that. You shouldn't look like that if you're in a conversion process and your wife is not even in the process or the conversion. You shouldn't look like that. You shouldn't talk like that. Shouldn't start expressing yourself that way. Why? Because you're pretending to be more righteous than what you are. You're not that righteous. You're not that tzaddik. No, I just like the look. That's why I do it. Okay, spare me. Spare me. Why? Chachamim says you're going to be left alone. Why? They told you. If you're going to be a righteous Noahide, learn Torah that's only relevant to the Noahides, which is Musar, Tanakh. That's it. If you're going to be in the process of conversion, learn the Torah of the Noahide and the things that you need to know for conversion. You don't need to know the details of the korbanot for conversion. You don't need to know all of the details of the sukkah and why you could do it with 3 and you could do it with 2 and you could do it with this and you could use different things for schach. You don't need to know that for conversion. You don't need to know all the details of business transactions for conversion. You know what you need to know for conversion? You need to know basic chumash. You need to know who God is. You need to know blessings. You need to know basic halachot of Shabbat. You need to know basic day-to-day life of a Jew. Yeah, but I can handle more. So what? So what? You think you can handle more? So what? You think you can handle more? Who said you're right? Why? If you think you could handle more, you wouldn't say that. Why? Because if you could really handle more, you would already be a perfect human being. Why? Because one of your responsibilities of even before you planned on being a Jew is to actually become a perfect human being by learning enough Musar. And if you already were a perfect human being with so much Musar that you would have, you wouldn't say so. Which means what? You can't handle more. In fact, you're not even handling what you're doing. You're not even handling what you're supposed to be doing. Why? You're focusing on other things, which is exactly what the Chachamim are warning us against. You're going to bring yourself to a status of death. You're going to give yourself a status of being desolate, alone, away from Am Yisrael and its sages. Just listen to what we say, and that's going to work for you. Yeah, but I want to do more. When the time comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to open both gates for you and says, come, Babi, come. But until then, you have to show that you have respect for the Chachamim. If you don't have respect for the Chachamim, I promise you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never welcome you with 2 hands. And even if you could fool the Bet Din and you could fool the rabbis and somehow get yourself into conversion and have a little certificate on your wall like a college diploma, it means 0. Why? Inside, you're still going to be rotten for the rest of your life. We know, unfortunately, there are countless fake converts in the world. Baruch Hashem, none of my students. But unfortunately, there are countless fake converts in the world. They are proud converts walking around half naked in the street. Proud converts drive on Shabbat. Proud converts intermarried, meaning he would have been better off staying a goy and actually marrying the goya. But he converted to Judaism just to marry a non-Jew. I mean, the amount of craziness that I deal with on a daily basis simply puts me in a situation where I don't have the luxury of having patience for every single case. But I do have a special place in my heart for converts. I do. Why? As everybody knows, my personal story, my wife, the love of my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And quite frankly, it's one of our obligations in the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us to the 4 corners of the world, not just to help Jews, but also to recruit non-Jews. So the least that I ask you, if you're going to ask me to help you with conversion, please, do you a favor. Just listen to what I say. Listen, don't create any new ideas. You don't know better. I promise you. I promise you don't know better. And it's not even just better than me. You don't know better than the Rambam. You don't know better than the Al-Sheikh. You don't know better than the Ramban. You don't know better than Meiri. You don't know better than anybody. In fact, you don't even know as much as you think you know. Why? Because had you known that much, you would have already perfected yourself as a human being. Which means that the only reason why anyone is doing more than they're supposed to in the name of righteousness is ego, which means wickedness. That's it. That's all it is. So here, Rabotai Karim, is where we could see how everything works. When a person is following the Torah, they could be as fanatic as they want to be. Why? Because the Torah is going to guide you and tell you where you are crossing the line. When a person is not following the Torah, everything is evil. Everything is treated as equally evil. Whether it's atheism, Christianity and idolatry, all types of other forms of heresy, and even if it is religious Judaism or righteous Noahidism. If you're not following what the Torah says, but rather are just following your own individual ideas, your own superheroes, your own this, that are not the Torah and its sages, 100% it's wrong. But don't take it from me. You could just simply continue failing. Or you could take it from me and start succeeding. I promise you, the Chachamim did not try to slow anyone down. In fact, in those days, they promoted their love for converts. One of the books they're working on translating right now that Rabbi Chaim wrote is the significance of converts. We love converts, but unfortunately the converts don't love themselves enough sometimes. They simply think they know better than the rabbis. And they end up going to wicked people like Asher Meza and the like, and they decide to make some type of mumbo jumbo and just to get themselves a college certificate, and they call it a conversion. They go to any mumbo jumbo rabbi, they're just going to give them a certificate, and they call themselves a Jew. And the reality is, Rabotai, all of those people will one day wake up and regret the day they were born. Why? They don't know how to be a Jew. They weren't ready to be one. They're probably not one. And needless to say, they put themselves in a really bad situation. Why? Because now that they possibly converted, they possibly didn't convert, there's all types of questions on it. Their whole life is going to be confusion. And needless to say, they're acting like they're overly righteous. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to match that suffering that goes to those people. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. Follow what the Torah says. Follow what the sages say. Follow. If you can follow, Bezrat Hashem, you'll succeed. If you can't follow, Bezrat Hashem, you'll do tshuva and then succeed. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen. Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Rabotai Ikarim, introducing the new Bezrat Hashem lecture center. We, Baruch Hashem, are here in Cooper City, Florida, on Sterling Avenue. We have, in the same shopping center, we have a major kosher supermarket, lots of Jews out here. Initially, we're going to start off this place next month with the place where we're going to do our weekly shulim 3 times a week. And as Hashem, as the crowd grows, maybe we'll add some more shulim in Hebrew as well. Initially, it's going to be for men and women in English, and then later on, we'll do some other things. Later on, we're going to need to transform this place also into a synagogue. But as you can see, the walls are empty. We need an enormous amount of books. We need a Sefer Torah. We need an Aron Kodesh. We need a mechitza. We need a bima. We need all the holy things that you need for a synagogue. Now, throughout the years, we've been very generous to other people who donated to Torah. Donated money to different synagogues, and I'm sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to send us the right people to donate all of these things to our organization, because all we want to do is spread Torah to the world. So anyone that is serious and looking to make a major contribution to our organization, whether it be the Sefer Torah or the Aron HaKodesh or the Mechitza, please contact us, or simply go to our website, bezrathashem.org, and may Hashem continue to bless you.